Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Drofilathon Takes on Vivec. This week we'll be coming to you. We're trying out a new system in which I'm screen sharing this playthrough over for Zen, so we can record without, trying to go through the hassle of coordinating and being in the same place physically. This is a lot easier to set up, so we can get the episodes out more consistently. I'm aiming to post them on a weekly basis every Wednesday, so that'll be your go-to day to check out the newest chapter in Drofilathon Saga.
All right. Yeah, hopefully this works out. We'll get these out more frequently.
Yep. Anyway, in the last episode, as you probably quite well remember, we were battered by a vampire and on our way to Nissus until we decided to head to Vivec, complete our shopping list, and hopefully get the books that Demnavani wants. Now, there was a lot of stuff we had to acquire, so Drofilathon wrote this little note for us, which details everything we need. So this one needs, because the Khajiit always talk about themselves in third person. We need new bound weapon spells, the books that Demnavani wants, new destruction spells, a new spear, and new summon spells.
All right.
Now, a lot of this will be just running around Vivec, obtaining it. So, for this episode, I want to prompt. The discussion prompt will be Immersion in the Elder Scrolls, and this is a huge topic, one that I think could very well be reintroduced in another episode when we have more to say, but we did want to kind of focus on it on this one. So basically, we want to talk about this concept of immersion and how different game elements come together to create immersion. For me, immersion has always been the ability to lose myself within a game, mentally separate myself from the real world and almost get lost in a kind of dream state of the video game. And the Elder Scrolls games do this amazingly. Say what you will about the negative effects or negative qualities of any of the games from Morrowind, Oblivion, or Skyrim, but I think one thing they all do really well is immersion. There are a whole bunch of different factors that go into immersion. Soundtrack, world space, combat, that kind of stuff. And the Elder Scrolls games have always been so well crafted that
oh, please, by all means.
the way all these elements interact just is insane in how, overwhelming the immersion can be. So
what a winning
basically,
personality.
Anytime I pick up one of the Elder Scrolls games, whether it is Oblivion, Skyrim, or Morrowind, I always end up getting lost in it if I'm in the right mindset.
What?
I guess, for Zen, you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I think it's really sort of... it makes sense to talk about immersion in sort of framed in the Elder Scrolls universe, just because of all the games I've played, I think they do them better than any other game. I think that is sort of what the Elder Scrolls are designed to do, which is to be immersive. They're not really designed to be sort of like the pinnacle of like technical like combat design or anything like that, because it's more about really exploring this world, and because they sort of create these worlds so well in a way that just your mind can get lost in them. I mean, that is immersion, and not very many games either do that well, or a lot of games that's not their aim. It's more like to create a competitive space or to create an exciting thing for a little while, or sort of like a more movie-like experience. Whereas the Elder Scrolls really does sort of put an emphasis on that sort of world space building element. Getting lost in this world.
Right. And go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just yeah. I feel like I don't know what I was about to say there, but the one thing I sort of wonder about is well, can you think of any other games that sort of do immersion well, like the Elder Scrolls?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Again, it's a weird thing because, like you said, there are games that attempt to create something, but I can't really say that many of them have set out to create a real sense of immersion. Maybe they've set out to create a good storyline or, compelling, I guess, maps or, just solid gameplay, but none where I really get lost, within the game. Black and White, maybe at times. Probably the contributions to that were kind of the freeform nature of the game and
what may I do for you?
The soundtrack a lot.
No, I don't think so.
Well, the reason I ask is because I wonder sort of how we define immersion, because in a way there's almost like for me almost a bias, because I sort of go to the Elder Scrolls and like Fallout and the other Bethesda games sort of as sort of examples of immersion, but what does immersion really mean? Does it mean that you are lost in the experience? Because you can get just as lost in sort of a competitive experience or something like that, I feel, if you sort of just lose yourself. But is there like I don't know. Immersion is kind of a nebulous.
Yeah.
A nebulous thing to define,
Yeah. That it is true though, because you can lose yourself in competitive games or whatever. To me, that kind of manifests itself in getting pissed whenever you die.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting you say that, because it is kind of a tough thing to define. I guess the difference between getting lost in like Call of Duty as opposed to an Elder Scrolls title or Fallout title is that maybe a sense of almost like other, like the game you're playing is almost another realm. Like you can get lost in
I'm sure there's someone else you can bother.
You can get lost in a Call of Duty game, but I still think there's maybe a baseline awareness that you're playing a competitive shooter.
Oh, please,
as with
by all means, ask
with an
me
Elder
more.
Scrolls title, you play it, and I think if you're in the right mood set,
time for you.
You can actually kind of almost maybe trick yourself into thinking that the world you're occupying is real, at least in a sense where it's real in the moment, kind of thing. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I guess maybe it is that, like, to your senses, more of the spectrum of your senses get sort of like stuck into the world, I guess. Well, that sort of brings, I guess, the next thing I'd like to explore, I guess, is we always, when we're playing this game, it's 2 Elder Scrolls games later, we're playing Morrowind right now, but
find someone else to bother.
We always have the we always have Oblivion and Skyrim to compare to. Do you think the sense of immersion? I mean, I feel they're very different, but do you think that it becomes more or less as it goes on through the games?
Well, that's kind of brings up what I wanted to talk about, and that is Skyrim. I'm convinced that immersion is something that they keep getting better and better at with the next newer Elder Scrolls titles. Skyrim introduced a whole ton of roleplay elements, such as the how you can pick plants and sell them to farmers for some extra cash, or chop wood all day and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Where it introduced role-playing elements that really it gave your character a place in the world that could run parallel to, like a commoner's life kind of thing. And if you wanted to live that life, you could. And that, along with the absolutely outstanding soundtrack, Skyrim introduced this thing that I really think is interesting, where the soundtrack adapts to what the player's doing. The boss music will play when obviously you're going up against a boss. But it also recognizes when combat isn't as I guess formidable, because if you're like exploring the wilderness and the peaceful exploration song is playing, which, again, the score in Skyrim is just insanely good. But basically, if you see one bandit, the game is going to know, okay, let's not interrupt the soundtrack with this battle music. It's only one guy. Let's just keep playing the nice, peaceful song. So there's really a lack of jarring transitions, and the fact that the music kind of keeps its cadence, I guess, more consistently, I think does a huge boost to immersion. And that just lines up, in addition to the better motion in the game. Things aren't as, like in Morrowind, things were really kind of choppy.
What?
Like the combat, the character animations, they all if you look right now, the jumping animation is just whack.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff takes you out of the game. But in Skyrim, they really nailed the sort of the fluid motion of the characters. And I think just all these elements I've been talking about for the past couple of minutes tying together probably makes Skyrim the best title as far as immersion goes. I don't know if you agree or disagree or whatever, but that's about it, that's what I think.
Yeah, actually, I agree very much so that they've gotten better and better at the immersion part. And just thinking about that, I mean,
okay, I'm listening.
I think that the designers, I mean, they have to have been aware, and that was sort of the draw to their games, is how lost you could get in their world. And they sort of emphasize that over I think they've more and more emphasized that over anything else as they've moved forward. So yeah, I've definitely seen that trend. But yeah, as you were saying, just sort of having all the stuff, all the little things, all the, like, you can pick up this drink that's on the table and drink it, and you can have, as you're saying, you can chop the wood and all that stuff, do all these mundane sorts of things. Like, it really, having the everyday gives sort of perspective to everything that really is epic. Like, because I noticed that in games that like want you to feel like the hero. Sometimes, you're in the hero role so often all the heroic things feel mundane. But when you have sort of this baseline of, well, this is what it feels like to be a regular person in this world, and you can be this, well, it really adds to that sort of like, oh wow, well then all this other stuff is happening.
Right. A brief lapse in this conversation. I wanted to show everyone what we've got so far. I got us a bound longbow spell and a bound spear spell. Let's check one of those out. This is our bow.
Ooh.
Yes, ferocious. It has faces on it.
I know. I love that.
I got us a summon scamp spell. So the scamp will replace the ancestor bro, I suppose. Got us this Firebite spell to complement our Frostbite spell, as well as a what's the other one? Poison spell. I think I need to search out a little more powerful destruction spells, but at this point, I'm going to show a Morrowind classic, which is the Creeper. Here he is, Creeper.
The Creeper.
He's a friendly scamp who buys things at full value. So I'm gonna sell him our Induril gear for 5,000, and we're pretty much rich now. So that'll help us afford some nicer spells and stuff. I ended up using the Mage Guild transportation to take us to Caldera, but I'm gonna head back to Vivec now. Little aside, all the Mages Guild characters hate us because we're in House Telvanni, and Telvanni is kind of the, rival to
I can already
the
tell
Mages
I'm
Guild.
not going to like this.
She can already tell she's not gonna like this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
Also just grabbed us a Flame Atronach spell. We need to work on our conjuration in general, and maybe that'll become easier to cast further on down the road, but definitely something to work for because they're pretty powerful creatures.
What? Why do you disturb me?
Anyway, what else is on our list of things to do? Books. We need to get those books. Now, I kind of took a chance. Last episode, I said that Joe Bosch's rare books in Vivec should have the books that Demnavani wants us to get. I don't actually know if he will. However, his inventory is pretty huge, so I'm just going to take a chance.
Substantial, to say the least.
Yep. Which makes sense. You'd think a bookstore in the capital city of the island would probably be the most extensive. Yeah, as I've mentioned so far, music has a huge contribution to immersion. All the scores of the Elder Scrolls games are they're all so good. I would say I'm split between Skyrim and Morrowind. If I had to pick a favorite,
What do you want?
Skyrim has that nostalgia effect to it that we discussed in past episodes, but at the same time, it's a very grand score on its own. But Skyrim, I think, had a lot of good variation in the different tones and themes. You know, they kind of had a more varied selection to accompany, a certain interaction with a certain mood,
Yeah, well, that's very sort of, that's very game music. it's very sort of as they've gone on with the Elder Scrolls, they've gotten better and better at that sort of music that is really designed to enhance the mood of the game. Because before, like at the start of game music, it was just the same. It was just the same as like, excuse you. It was basically the same as music you would listen to outside of a game. It was just put there to sort of add some mood, just so it wasn't like silent or whatever. But now with the sort of dynamic music, it's really a different way of experiencing music, because it's there not as a piece in itself, but as an enhancement to the overall experience, which I think is what game music should be like. Right. Especially when it comes to sort of immersion. And I think it's difficult to do. I mean, getting those transitions, if you do them poorly, they can actually kill the immersion.
Right.
Because if they pop in and out at the wrong time or whatever.
And that was one of my beefs with the Oblivion score, was that it had lots of these kind of romping sort of adventurous soundtrack, and but like I mentioned, Skyrim system where it kind of detects what you're up against and does or doesn't change the music accordingly. Well, Oblivion didn't have that. It was just, oh, you're in combat, here's the combat music. And since all this music was really kind of gallivanting, you would have these really sudden transitions between like nice exploration music and then all of a sudden dun 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 dun, it was pretty immersion breaking.
Yeah, well, that was where I think that they were first experimenting with that sort of thing. So it was a transition where it maybe suffered a little bit, but I think it was probably a necessary step to get to where it is now.
Right. And in many ways that's true for Oblivion, how it was kind of a transitional game in which they were experimenting with all this new next-gen tech. Like, I remember the big thing was NPC interactions and how they would have their own, daily schedules and talk to each other, which was cool and all, but in execution, the same 10 conversations happen over and over again.
Yeah.
And, it's not like, oh, this game sucks because of that. It's like, good on them for trying, That's a tough thing to pull off. But it was clunky.
Yeah. Well, I think that sort of how Oblivion was done is that it was a really excellent game for its time. But I think it sort of, because it was so, I guess, just exploratory and experimental and like new to a lot of the things that it was doing, I feel that it's aged more so maybe even than
when you can ride.
Is aging faster than maybe Morrowind and Skyrim will.
Right.
But yeah, sort of it's funny because sort of my memory of Oblivion is of getting the Game Informer that was sort of before the game came out, was like talking about all the amazing things that are going to be in Oblivion.
Yeah.
And they're just talking about how, see that mountain over there? You can actually climb that. Which is like, wait a minute. Like, now thinking back on that, it's like, isn't that the same as Morrowind? But it was just, yeah, they were talking about like the character interactions, blah, blah, blah. It was all these features, and it seemed really cool. And it did really seem very cool at the time.
Yep. Okay, so we just picked up the books that Deb Navani wants us to get. He wanted the Chronicles of True Left, Fire and Faith, and Antecedents of Dwemer Law.
Make it.
And we now have all of them. That mostly completes our list of things we need to do. I would like to maybe get some more destruction spells, but I'm not sure where to get them quite yet. Well, I know where to get them, but I just don't know if they're going to be the ones that I want. So we might hold off on that. I think we're pretty well equipped at this point. Better equipped than we were an episode ago anyway. So now the last item on our list is to find a new spear. And that is actually going to lead us to our next adventure, which will be unrelated to House Telvanni, but will be very strange. It'll be strange on a level of Thorana's skirt quest, in which we had her set our Khajiit brethren on fire.
Uh-oh.
And
Shenanigans are about to ensue.
I won't quite say exactly what we're going to be doing yet, but we'll be heading off to the temple district of Vivec to go to where I'm planning to go.
You're just gonna tease.
I'm just gonna string it out, yeah.
Leave it on a cliffhanger.
Hey everyone, Ponyboy here. This episode and the next episode were recorded in one session, but it ran a little long. So instead of just dropping one huge chunk on you guys, I'm gonna split it up into 2 episodes. So check back next week for the second part. The armorer mod, so he might have super low barter, so you can't just dump all of your stuff onto him. I see. Which is good. I like mods that consider balance. You know, no one likes to open up a mod and it the author intentionally made it super easy to.
Here's everything awesome.